Could I invite the Ross McFarlane for the Halswell-Hornby-Riccarton Community Board to come forward? Look, we've got 20 minutes per community board. I allowed 20 minutes. If people want to ask questions, then please keep the questions focused and short, but also can you let me know that you want to ask a question early on in the piece, because if I don't write your name down, then you aren't going to be added to the list at the last minute if we get to the end of question time. So I'm trying to be fair to everyone. We're under a strict timetable, and I did allow an extra 2 minutes for that one, and one question turned into 3, and that happens from time to time. So I apologise, but that's the way it's going to be. Ross, thank you for stepping in. I know that Mark's not well, and we really appreciate you coming today to present on behalf of the Community Board.
Good morning all, and thank you, Mick, Leanne, councillors and staff. Yes, Mike's not well, and our deputy's offshore. Governance team had a plan B, and
you're
that simply said, yeah, we'll draw straws, but last year's budget only allocated 1 straw, so, yeah, hence the position. Thanks for the opportunity. I'd also like to take this point to thank the staff. I think the levels of information that we have got and received in this long-term plan has been superior to other years, and we've been able to make more informed decisions, particularly relative to costs, etc., and particularly across neighbouring boards. We have a better idea of what our neighbours are doing. So our board considers the council's approach to be pragmatic in its goal of seeking to strike the balance between the many competing demands and funding pressures the city faces. The board acknowledges the big issues for the council over the period of the plan. The focus taken by the council in generally adopting a medium approach and forming its budgets for key infrastructure projects is understandable. The board is pleased with the levels of intended investment as recognition for the intensification and growth occurring in the greater southwest areas of our board. Some of those examples are obviously the Riccarton Community Centre, which the plans aren't finalised, but going forward. The Hornby Customer Services and Southwest Leisure Centre, an ongoing project. The Chance Road, a couple of issues there, which is mainly to do with the Christchurch Southern Motorway 2 and the interfacing of our areas into those roads, etc. One area our board is disappointed with is that one project, and particularly Bradshaw Terrace. We're extremely disappointed to know that it's been slipped outside the first 3 years of the LTP. It came into the LTP in 2013, I understand. We're often asked to sweat assets. I can absolutely assure you of visiting this area yesterday, this asset is dead. There's nothing left to come out of it. It's buggered. And I think the promises that we've made to the community to restore the level of service back to that area is well overdue. Indicative costs there on your agenda. Yes, it hurts, but it has to be fixed. We've got to carry on maintaining, and I think we've heard that from the previous unit. Our board, regarding the making progress question and the Christchurch NZ as such, our board sort of see that at $10.2 million they're receiving anyway. Perhaps some alternatives to raise their proposed 1.4 million, maybe the ability for our council holding companies to top those points up. And I know we like to take the return off them, but that's an area where our council holding companies actually return better by having these events, i.e. power, airport, ports, etc. So our point is that we cannot support that additional 1.4 requested by Christchurch NZ. Residential rate rises, that's the toughie. We all know what we're up against there. The board is concerned though to note the compounding effect of the projected rate increases over the coming decades. Our example, which I understand our board's followed since 2014 through to 2024 under this long-term plan, puts a reasonably priced house at a 51% increase over that area, that period. So that takes it from 4,795 to 7,241, and that, if you're on a fixed income, I'd suggest is absolutely unsustainable. Rates policy. Rural rates affect our southwest area because of our boundary to rural areas, obviously. In formulating this submission, the board has reflected on the inconsistencies evident in applying the remote rural rates component of the council's current policy. Quick graphic on your overhead there. This is an area in the southwest that has undergone the revision by the council rating staff. This is what they see as the correct rating. The 25s on the board are the ones that receive the remote rural rate. The R's are the ones that pay the residential rate. So these are similar sized properties doing similar things in very close proximity, yet just by being the neighbour to an R or a 25 there, that person's receiving on a base general rate of $4,000 about a $1,000 rebate. And that makes it, it's a costly area. It's our policy, it's wrong. This come before us in the 2015 long-term plan as well. The proposal, and I thank Councillor Galloway there for bringing it. It will be coming to the Finance Committee, I understand. We need to review this policy. This is the staff doing the best they can with bad policy. You've got R's and 25s as neighbours there, substantial amounts of money, and it needs correction. It will have to be costed, but it's wrong. So we ask the board respectfully requests that the council initiate a review of its present rate policy. The aim to be clearer and more transparent and consistent on the matter. The board agrees that the traditional property Bates race system is not sustainable for our ratepayers in the years covered by this plan, and we do have to look at other alternative forms of income. Not an easy one, this, obviously. We can't keep taking off our council hold companies to the degree we are, but some things that our board considered potentials were the tourist bed tax, airport landing charges, a review there, the free admission for visitors to our museums and art galleries. Perhaps we could, via our airport landing charge, tax them there and give them free entry by default to our museums and our art gallery. The board offers its full support for the indicative funding in the draft long-term plan for the multi-purpose arena. Pretty critical to our area. I think we've seen that. It would be good for our city and the greater regional area, and I think you'll find Mr Broughton will be submitting from the Selwyn District Council tomorrow. He's offering that perhaps the regions should be paying their greater share for that, as does happen in the Wellington area and the Otago area, I understand. The board also urges the council to optimise the revenue generated from development contributions to keep up with the growth demand. I do note there, though, that our developers are our allies. We need to get our city to the population we had pre-earthquake. We're not there yet, so these guys help us get there by their developments. It's an easy hit on development charges, and we have got to help them across the line. They have this appearance of being fat cats. I would suggest that's not the case. It's a pretty hard market out there in development at the moment. Flood protection. Well, this is a big cost. A lot of this is residual work and futures works to be undergone in mainly the Halswell ward, but for the protection downstream of Cashmere Sprayed and Linwood Central out towards the estuary. On completion of the Henderson's Basin as proposed, its surrounds will equate to the area the size of Hagley Park. These important retention and detention assets located primarily in our ward will contribute much to control the flooding for those downstream communities. Accordingly, the board fully supports all such flood protection critical related projects, and we fully support the Strategic Land Acquisitions Fund, and I just note on that had some of those 15, 20-year-old purchases of properties in areas in the southwest not been made 20 years ago, we would not have these options to create these type facilities here. What we pay now will obviously be half of what we could potentially pay, if not more, in the future. Our board on drinking water totally support the council and its initiatives there, and obviously that's got to be our priority. That's as good as a patch on our eye as our good water, so we need that. Transport. Our board fully supports the inclusions of some major projects in the transport area, the Riccarton Bus Priority and Public Transport Corridor. These are major works, and that's the effect of it, that graphic there. They are deep down trench works down our most used bus route. That's going to create major upheaval, but the resultant effect, which is on the overhead now, is a real improvement on the street appeal of the area. And yes, it's going to be a tough project, that one. Thank you for the funding. It has to happen. The infrastructure underground is as bad as bridge or terrace. Just moving on, the board also note that there's a number of other strategic corridors, one of them being the Lincoln Road corridor. Our board reiterate its view on the importance of this strategic transport link, and this is to gain access to our new Naipuna Wai. Sorry, I must slide out, Gary.
That's all right. Get there.
Yep. If we don't get public transport priority down Lincoln Road corridor towards Halswell Road, we won't have the ability to service these new developments. The roads are clogged now. It's a very small section of road that we're talking about, and it's the link between Wrights Road and Curtis Road. Our board fully support that. Waterloo Business Park. Our board very much thank the council for including this increase. This is a critical road link to a fast developing industrial area. The road that presently services it is totally unsuitable. It has gone a wee bit higher than anybody would like, obviously, on projects, and that's primarily because we have to deal with Kiwi Rail and relocation of an important asset to them. The Waterloo Business Park developers, they have been very forward and added considerably to their required development to get this roading link across the line. I'd just like to add that any business that we can get in this business park is one that probably won't go 8 k's to the south and go to iZone at Rolleston. It's pretty important. The board would also like to ask some long-term funding, annual plan funding for some strategic corridors, and here we're particularly talking about the Cashmere Road corridor. We have had some initial briefings on this. This is one that is very, very heavily used by cyclists. It's one of those runs that goes up and goes down. They love obviously the pressure going up and the thrill going down. It is an unsafe link. We had a death there about 2 years ago. The whole area, how the traffic comes into that link, needs to be redesigned, and you can see the scars in the middle on the hills there as we're getting more development up on some of those hill suburbs to the south of Westmoreland there. Westmoreland Cashmere Road has no intersection available, or no good intersection at the bottom of Westmoreland. There's another 400 homes going at the top of Westmoreland, which will take the homes to about 1,200. And we would like consideration in the pretty short term that we get some better access via roundabout or integration. Going back to facilities, yes, thanks for the Riccarton Community Centre, Hornby Library obviously. We're also very supportive of our friends in Linwood Woolston for replacement of their pool, which was a bit like the one in Sockburn. It was removed, so and we're also supportive of the Naval Point project for our Banks Peninsula team. Just regarding benefits, in the southwest we get a lot of amenity area, which comes with the areas of stormwater detention, etc. There tends to be a perception that some of that is reserved land. It's able to be used all the time for recreation. Unfortunately it's not. It's flooded for a good percentage of the time. It's very wet. The board has the view that if we are taking reserve areas, that we take the land as opposed to the money. It's easy to take the cash. Once you've taken the cash, it's gone. Whereas if you have the land, you've still got the asset and the benefit and the amenity level that comes with it, which could always be developed better in the future. The board repeats its support for the continuation of the strategic acquisition, and that's primarily as our future proofing of our areas. The board also thank the council for and support the council in their 1.9 million towards the landmark grant fund, or our heritage fund, and we in the Riccarton area have just been granted some funding for Chokebore Lodge, which is terrific, and that will add a little historic area to a new development out there beside Riccarton Racecourse. Our other comments, and these are very aspirational, we would like some funding to initiate some appropriate investigation towards the needs of an indoor velodrome. Cycling is one of our most popular sports. Performance cycling is at a level that the facilities we have in Christchurch are sadly lacking. We all know that Invercargill's got better than us. It was a shame we didn't get the National Performance Cycling Centre when soon after the earthquake. But they are aspirational things that we'd very much like the council to look at. We also thank the council for the continuation of its community grants. These small little grants to people really bring out the best of some of our citizens, and the actual benefit of that is probably uncalculatable. So all in all, we'd also thank the council for returning some of those maintenance issues, and I think that's been touched on in the previous presentation. We're giving our citizens a 5.5% rates rise potentially. We would all like to think we're trying to get something better in the levels of service back, and so yeah, happy to take questions. I don't know how I'm going for time.
2 minutes 12, so Sarah and then Tim. I think that's probably all we're going to get to, so if we get to you, Phil's after, if we get to him. Sarah.
Thank you. And it's a really comprehensive one, and I thank you for that. Just quickly, there's just a bit of a disconnect between two of the comments here. I was trying to understand with the landmark heritage, and I can completely understand wanting to be able to do those once in the central city, those key landmarks, and the grant for that. And yet you're very firm that you're really reluctant to have the rates increases. Was the board aware, because the wording isn't particularly clear in the document, I don't think, that the continuation of the 1.9 million per annum to the landmark grant fund would mean a rates increase on top of the 5.5? I
didn't read it as that.
Yeah, so
Sarah,
I think that at the moment it kind of reads like we've already budgeted for it and shall we continue it? But actually it's not in the draft currently, and adding the 1.9 would mean probably a 0.4% on top of the 5.5. Was the board aware of that?
I think, in relation to heritage, it's a difficult one. We've got to protect
Yeah,
our
that's right.
heritage. Similarly to the Christchurch NZ, figure of about 0.4. Can we afford it? Well, anything hurts, obviously.
That's it. I was just checking on how the question was read and whether you thought,
I think we'd have to say yes if it could be slotted in, but where those other savings are made, that's the tough.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Tim.
Thank you. Thank you to you and your board firstly for your support on the flood protection, and also the Cashmere Road corridor, which is, affects Halswell, Westmoreland, Craycroft, Cashmere, Thorrington, Bowen Vale, St Martins, Murray Ainsley, and Port Hills, and the Hillsborough communities. So thank you for that. My question to your board, and we have had a combined community board over the 4 lane of Lincoln Road. Would your board be supportive in trying to figure out the planning between Lincoln Road, between Whiteley and Barrington intersection, which is already gridlocked as we know at times, and Memorial Morehouse Ave? Because if we go to 4 lane to Whiteley, Barrington, etc., and then we're still going to have a gridlock into the community, because we've seen what's happened to the Waltham community and the Sydenham community and the Eddington community. We've got 4 lane of Rowan Street. So what do you?
I think an answer along the lines of yes or no would be acceptable at this point. I think probably yes.
Given that the level of investment that we've taken in land acquisition and the very specific point between Wrights and Curlitz Road, the designation's been in place for some 15 odd years. We own most of the land. There's a few more properties to buy. We're buying a component of it as a designation and requirement from the Health Board for the frontage for the Norwest Arch, which links Domain Terrace through to Annex Road. We're doing that now. The area is changing predominantly to commercial via the medical centre and a new supermarket down there. To me, it is, if you like, it's the net between the sandglass. We've got flow one end and it flows out the other. It's that neck of the sand and the hourglass that just throttles it. I think we've made preparation for it. It's a high on the list for our from our network people and the team that presented it, Richard Holland. I think we've got to go ahead with it. But I don't like the word 4-laning. To me, if we use multi-mode with public transport priority, we'll get a better level of acceptance. And obviously the subsidies too that we get by putting in public transport. Remember that the section south into Halswell is State Highway 75. If we do our bit, NZTA will do their bit. And I think we've seen that of recent government announcements too.
That's excellent. Look, thank you. Thank you, Ross, and thank you for stepping in and playing this role. It's been greatly appreciated and it's been a very valuable submission. So thank you very much.
Good luck with deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be seeing you before then.